In this video, we are talking about 8 players that you need to add immediately in fantasy football after week 10, plus 5 players that you must stash now to get ahead of your league mates. But before we get into it, if you can please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do end up enjoying, starting with my number 1 pickup of the week, and that is Gus Edwards. Gus Bus is back, and he looked very good in week 10 in his first game back from injury. 10 carries, 55 yards, 5.5 yards per carry against a really good Tennessee run defense. And I know it was only one game, but it kind of appears that the Chargers would prefer to pound the rock with their bigger back. Not saying that Dobbins won't be involved, but it's going to be more of a 50-50 split, as Dobbins saw his lowest rush attempt share since week 2 and had another inefficient day. 15 carries, 50 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. Yes, last week JK looked really good. Wasn't the case this week. He's been very inconsistent for most of the year. And over the last month, Dobbins has really struggled except for week 9. So I really like Gus in this offense. And just imagine if Edwards would have scored a touchdown in week 10. I think people would be going crazy right now. But trust me, in this offense, we know what Gus Edwards does in his career. He knows how to score touchdowns when they get in close. He can pound it in, so he could be a guy that gets you a touchdown and 50 rushing yards every single week, and I'll take that upside for a guy that you can get off the waiver wire now. And if something were to happen to JK, like, Edwards could be a league winner potentially. We know Dobbins' injury history. I know we talk about it every single week. We don't want him to get hurt, but his injury history is so extensive. It just feels like you're just praying that it doesn't happen, but it could. Any player could get hurt. Dobbins just seems a little bit more at higher risk than most guys. So Edwards, for me, is a top add on a pretty potent Chargers offense that's cooking right now behind Justin Herbert. And we know they still want to run the football. All those things being said, Gus could potentially be a league winner down the stretch, especially if something were to happen to Dobbins. On to my number 2 add of the week. It's Audric Estime, the Denver Broncos rookie running back. It appears, I know it's only been 1 week, small sample size, that he might be taking over this backfield. I feel like with Sean Payton at head coach, it's really hard to decipher what he's going to do week to week. But for right now, Estime saw a season-high 45% snap share this week. 14 of the 17 running back carries went to Estime. That's pretty impressive. And he also saw 2 of the 3 backfield red zone opportunities, so that's good for potential touchdown upside. He outsnapped Javonte 26-17, and Williams only saw 1 rush attempt for 1 yard. Kind of weird usage for Williams. It will be interesting to see what it looks like going forward. All that being said, it wasn't a big day for Estime. 14 carries, 53 yards, 3.8 yards per carry. But he still did have some very impressive, explosive runs against Kansas City, who's arguably one of the better run defenses in all of football right now. And Estime is a 21-year-old rookie sitting at 5'11", 227 pounds. He's a big back that's hard to bring down, which makes him an exciting add on a solid Denver offense that's playing pretty well, led by Bo Nix right now. But I will caution you, there's a chance this could be an ugly 3-back committee with Javonte, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Estime, so I wouldn't just dump all of your fab here. Because it could be a muddy backfield to predict going forward. They could ride the hot hand. It could be a big Javonte game next week for all we really know. So get him on your team, but I would not spend a lot if you can help it. At number 3, Ricky Pearsall had his best game of his young career in week 10. It's just a really good story. After he suffered that gunshot, he finally made his way back onto the field and he found the end zone, his first NFL touchdown on Sunday. 4 catches, 73 yards. That touchdown on 6 targets, 17.3 fantasy points. He had a strong 71% route participation. He was 3rd in snaps among wide receivers, 18% target share, 20% target per route run rate. And it appears that Ricky might have carved out a role for himself in this elite San Francisco offense, with Jawan Jennings now taking over that Brandon Ayuk role, playing the X receiver, and that allowed the rookie to take Jennings' old role, which was playing from the slot. So this could be a really nice thing for Pearsall. And yeah, San Francisco has so many weapons on offense, so it will be hard to predict when Pearsall is going to have another big game. Not everyone can eat every single week for the 49ers, but he's a guy that still needs to be added because of his talent and the situation that he is in, being on a really good 49ers offense. At number 4, Taji Spears, first game back from injury, and he wasted no time showing off his explosiveness and playmaking ability. 7 carries, 47 yards, 6.7 yards per carry. He did have 3 receptions for only 4 yards. We'll kind of throw that one away. But he only saw 3 fewer snaps than Tony Pollard, 27 to 24. Pollard's 53% running back snap share was his lowest of the season. Yes, Tony Pollard has been playing really well. I think we continue to see a backfield split, though, in Tennessee going forward, as Spears is the type of player that can have a lot of success with not a lot of volume. He's one of those explosive, efficient backs that can thrive on 10 to 12 touches a week. So he's a guy that needs to be added because of that upside. And remember, this is a player that averaged 4.58 yards created per touch last year, while ranking 5th in explosive run rate, 14th in yards after contact per attempt, along with earning 52 receptions, 70 targets, all in his rookie year. This guy is really talented. He's very versatile. And I think Tennessee is going to lean on him with not many weapons on offense outside of Pollard and Ridley. Spears is going to have a role on this Titans offense for the rest of the season and needs to be added onto your team. Moving on to number 5, Jaylen Warren. He's likely already rostered in most leagues, but I think he has a 51% roster ownership on Yahoo, so just barely over half, which is ridiculous. He should be closer to 70% if it were me, especially if Najee Harris is not available in week 11. He did get banged up on Sunday. He could be good to go next week. But if not, Warren would be vaulted into a massive role on a good Steelers offense. And let's be honest, Jaylen looked like the better back on Sunday against the Commanders. 14 carries, 66 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, along with 2 receptions for 29 yards. Yes, he fumbled on that drive. That wasn't great. And yeah, Najee has looked like a really good back for most of the year. So I don't think there's a world where Warren just takes over this backfield, but he's going to have a role. And like I said, if Najee misses week 11 or plays but is a little banged up, Warren could see a bigger role. And remember, this is another guy similar to Spears who was one of the better backs in all of football from an advanced metric standpoint last year, as he ranked 1st in missed tackles forced per attempt, 2nd in yards after contact per attempt, and 3rd in explosive run rate. I think right now he's an elite stash at worst and a guy that's really building some flex appeal going forward. He could be your RB2 for some weeks if you really need him, because he can get it done with, similar to Spears, low volume. He's an explosive guy that I really like the second half of the year. At number 6, Marshon Lloyd. I always want to give you guys a little bit sneakier of an underrated ad that many people probably aren't talking about, because Lloyd has obviously been forgotten about. He's only played 1 game this season as he's been dealing with an ankle injury. He's a rookie running back. Not a lot of people probably even know who he is, but he's finally going to be activated off IR this week for the Packers and could be a big piece in this offense the second half of the year. And Green Bay has continued to show us that they want to use 2 running backs. Yes, Josh Jacobs is the workhorse back. He's going to get the majority of the work, but they don't want to give him too much work where it could risk an injury. So Lloyd is going to have a role when he returns. My guess is he would assume the RB2 spot behind Jacobs as soon as he is activated. And Marshon played college at USC, and he's an explosive player, elusive, big playmaking ability, tackle breaking machine type of player. And in his 2 final collegiate seasons, he finished top 20 in yards after contact per attempt, breakaway percentage, and PFF elusive rating. He's a really talented, explosive player on an elite Packers offense. This is a guy that you can probably get for free this week. Probably won't be the case next week because he'll at least be on the football field. People will know that he's activated, that he's playing. So get him on your team now. And I think he has a sizable role for Green Bay for the remainder of the season. All right, moving on to number 7, Adonai Mitchell made the most of his opportunities this week with Michael Pittman Jr. out with that back injury. 6 catches, 71 yards on 6 targets, 13.1 fantasy points, and led all Colts receivers in route participation at 95%. This is a player that we really liked coming out of college, as he's an elite athlete and a dangerous downfield threat. He kind of reminds me of CeeDee Lamb. I know that's kind of a bold take, but he has a unique skill set. He's a really talented player that just needs some time to develop and needs more playing time to come into his own. And I think the second round rookie could catch his stride the second half of the year when most rookies do. And 2 of his next 3 matchups are very favorable for wide receivers. We don't know when Pittman's coming back. He could be out several more weeks. He could be back this week. We don't know. This is a speculative ad. Obviously, if MPJ is back, that really hurts Mitchell, but you need to add him just in case because we don't really know. Seems like this back injury has been bothering him for a while. What if they end up putting him on IR? And that would make Mitchell a very strong ad. It doesn't seem like the Colts want to play Anthony Richardson anymore, even though they're getting crushed with Joe Flacco under center. So we'll take it though. I think we'd still rather have Flacco from a passing perspective than Richardson. It wouldn't shock me though if they eventually just give up on the Flacco experience and start seeing what they have in their franchise quarterback. But for now, Mitchell is a really talented guy that could see more work and needs to be added. And lastly, at number 8, Marquez Valdes-Scantling put together an all-time vintage MVS stat line in Week 10. 3 receptions, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 25.9 fantasy points. I can confidently say no one started him this week unless you're in a deeper league, but 67% raw participation, 15% target share. So he didn't get any volume. He had 3 catches. I believe he had 3 targets as well, but he figures to be the Saints wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season. We know Shaheed out for the year. And Chris Olave placed on IR, going to miss the next 4 games with his 5th concussion. It wouldn't shock me if Olave is just done for the year because the Saints really have nothing to play for. But that is still yet to be determined. It just feels gross overall recommending MVS as an ad because we've seen this movie before. Everyone's going to add him this week, and then he's going to have 0 catches for 0 yards and 3 really big drops that could have been touchdowns. Like, we know what we're getting with this player at this point. He's an older receiver. I don't care about this performance. I don't think he has much upside. Will he have another 50-yard touchdown in the weeks to come? Sure, I bet he will, but he's not a guy that I want to start on my team. I wouldn't mind if you placed a waiver wire claim for him for $1. If you get him, great. He's a guy that has some upside that you can leave on your bench for now, but outside of that, I would not go too crazy trying to claim him just because I don't think he's that good overall. He will have opportunities in this offense, but even that, not too appealing for me. Now moving on to some honorable mentions, we have Cam Akers, depending on how long Aaron Jones is out or if he's out at all. I believe he's dealing with a rib injury. Quentin Johnson, who continues to score touchdowns at a high rate, doesn't get a lot of targets, but he has a knack for the end zone, along with Bo Nix and Demario Douglas. So those are some guys that you can add that I think are worth it. Just don't spend a ton of fab on them. Now moving on to some secret stashes. They're not really secret stashes anymore because we've come to the point of the season where you have to handcuff your RB1, the elite running backs in the game right now. So they're just running back handcuffs. Blake Corum, Ray Davis, Trey Benson, Zach Charbonnet, and Tyler Algier. All these guys need to be on your bench. They are the handcuffs to the top backs in the league. If something were to happen to them, then all these guys would have tremendous value. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you took away anything from the video, if you can please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out more than you know, and I will see you in the next one.